As we mentioned, how we conduct ourselves as leaders can and will have a significant negative or positive effect on not only us, both personally and professionally, but also on the company that we work for. It's important that we not only do what is right, but to make sure that we do what is expected of us all of the time. So here's Randy, again, and the team of PRMC players with a little demonstration that should help clear things up for you. Thanks.
Hello again. Each of you has at your station a playbill that was beautifully put together. And I give a quick shout out to Tara and Mitzi and her team for working very hard on that. We're going to be putting forth for you what I hope will be helpful information, but done in a slightly different format, how the hospital turns into a lawsuit. And I'm going to forewarn you just a couple things. This is a deliberately overdone script to really send a message about a variety of things that actually happens in workplaces all the time. But we're doing it this way so that we can hopefully reinforce why what I've already spoken about and what you'll hear me talk about this afternoon makes sense. I will very briefly, though, just so we can stay on schedule, be making some quick comments out of role and more as the narrator in between our scenes just to help drive home some of those points. But again, I'm going to keep them brief. And then if there are any particular questions, we'll go ahead and save that till the end just so that we can get through the entire production. And with that, I present to you the PRMC players.
I'm Shirley Uno. I've been an employee at Tri-State Hospital for 15 years, first as a nursing assistant, then as a patient care technician, and 5 years ago, I became a registered nurse. I've worked for the past 8 years on 6 North. I've dreamed of working on 6 South, the department known for bringing on the best of the best. And I was thrilled when there was an opening on the hospital's intranet job site. 6 North and 6 South, they work regularly together, and the employees on both units have been cross-trained on the other unit. I promptly submitted my application, and I was certain I was going to get the job. To my surprise, I didn't even get an interview. I don't have a history of written discipline. I've received several awards, and my performance evaluations on 6 North are positive. I was surprised when I learned that there were negative remarks on my transfer eligibility form. I don't recall my supervisor ever discussing any concerns with me. I wonder if perhaps I was denied the chance to interview because of my age and a relatively recent medical leave of absence.
I am Sue Your Pants Off, a well-established employment lawyer with a reputation for representing employees who believe they have been wronged in the workplace. I have an active website where I regularly post about the different businesses and organizations that I have sued on behalf of my clients. I also have a well-read blog, Sue to Bastards, where I regularly post advice to potential clients about how easy it is, especially since #MeToo, to get a settlement out of an employer. I am well known in the tri-state area, and Shirley Uno has decided to seek my advice about her possible claims against the Tri-State Hospital.
Hi, I am Nikki Never Writes. I am the hospital nursing supervisor who has been Shirley Uno's nurse manager for the past 5 years on 6 North. I am hardworking, and I always remind my team about the importance of patient care and good teamwork. I am, however, not so great at follow-up on tough or sensitive employee conversations. I believe it's easier to help an employee with positive morale-boosting behavior in a group setting rather than individual feedback and criticism. I really want my employees to like me, especially because I'm so much younger than my nurses that I supervise. Who writes anything down anyway, anymore, right?
I'm a newly graduated RN who's been working at the hospital for about 3 months. I work in 6 North and I'm eager to get along with everybody. Shirley has taken an interest in making sure I feel welcome and has been very friendly with baked goods, hugs every time she sees me, and somewhat odd conversations. I have not been very comfortable with Shirley's outreach toward me, but given the way I see some of the doctors and nurses behave toward each other day after day in front of patients, visitors, other employees in the West Wing, which is right next to 6 North, I assume the hospital does not take any actions against employees, especially of those who are important or have been around for a while. I know the hospital has a workplace harassment and complaint policy, but I assume it is in the handbook, just like any other place I have worked. I assume Shirley's behavior is just part of the normal behavior that is allowed to happen at the hospital.
I am Dot DeLine, the hospital's Employee Care Unit or Human Resources Director. I'm very dedicated to making sure the hospital complies with the law, follows its policies, and provides as much support and reminders to hospital leaders about the importance of documentation and communication. I regularly struggle with managers who often complain that they want to terminate employees or transfer them away from their department, but do not have the documentation that confirms the problems have been identified and discussed with the employees. I am also constantly working with my team on educating all hospital employees about the importance of a professional and harassment-free workplace. Long and stressful hours at the hospital often lead to aggressive bullying behavior on the one hand and flirtatious, inappropriate behavior on the other. I do my best to get the information across in various ways, but continue to find that many of the hospital's leadership team is too busy to really make changes and simply do not understand how hard it is to defend a lawsuit these days, especially when there is not proper documentation in place or managers who do not behave or manage or behave properly. At the same time, the hospital's leadership regularly vents to me that Tri-State Hospital must really be a unit of the federal government because it seems next to impossible to be able to terminate a poorly performing employee.
Hello, everyone. Last but certainly not least, my name is Lou Pohl. I'm the hospital's employment attorney, and let me tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, guys. I work regularly with Dot and then the other managers at Tri-State Hospital, and we look at employment matters such as claims of workplace harassment and wrongdoing. I work with the managers at Tri-State, and I see how to try to make the management team take documentation and communication more seriously. I've found that the hospital's managers continue to think that at-will employment issues means they can fire an employee. They don't need any reason to do so, or they don't need to have perfect documentation. A lot of times the managers will ask me, if an employee has an attitude or just does not get along well with others, isn't that enough reason to fire them?
Good morning, Ms. Uno. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. I know we had our 15-minute complimentary phone call, but I'm glad you decided to come into my office so we could discuss your retirement funding, your possible claims against Tri-State Hospital.
Thank you, Ms. Your Pants Off. I'm deeply upset about what's been going on at the hospital, and I am sure I'm being discriminated against.
Why don't you tell me about it?
Of course. I have worked very hard on my floor in 6 North and applied for a transfer to 6 South, but I was denied the transfer, even the chance to interview.
Well, why would you think not getting an interview would be because of a discriminatory reason?
Things just aren't adding up to me, and I've read enough of your wonderful blog posts on your fun website, Sue Da Bastards, that I think I have a case. Let me explain. First, I have my notebook here, where I have all of my notes of everything that's happened to me, or been said to me, or that I've seen for the past 5 years. I have excellent notes of everything and have been very careful to write everything down when it happened and dated it too, so I know everything. I've also printed out every email that I've ever been sent, and I have a few pictures. I have backup copies of this made, so feel free to take as much as you'd like.
Miss Uno, can you excuse me a minute? I forgot about a quick call I have to make. Hello, Royal Caribbean? I'm going to go ahead and book that cruise around the world. Yes. Okay, I'll call you back. Okay, Shirley, why don't you tell me more about these concerns that you have and what's documented in your notebook?
I've worked at Tri-State for 15 years. I've never been written up, and I have copies of everything I've ever received from Tri-State in here. I have my Sunshine Award that I earned when I was a nursing assistant. Oh, here, I have my Daisy Award. I earned that during my first year as an RN on 6 North. In fact, I only have positive notes and documents from my supervisor, Nikki Neverwrites, for 5 years. Well, about 2 years ago, my unit 6 North started cross-training with 6 South so we could back each other up if work needs dictated. We all did such a great job with cross-training, we were given a party with cake and balloons and banners telling us how wonderful we were and that we were the best. Of course, I have pictures of all that in my trusty binder. Nikki told all of us that we had a great team approach and had done well.
Well, Shirley, you know, that really sounds like Nikki thought you did a great job as part of that cross-training. Perhaps in your performance evaluations, you received some feedback that put you on notice about the concerns that Nikki Neverwrites has?
Oh, Sue, of course I have copies of all my performance evaluations, and I have taken the time to read through every performance evaluation that Nikki prepared for me for the past 5 years. Here they are here. I have always earned satisfactory for my overall ratings. She drew lots of smiley faces too. See here?
Ah.
Nikki said I have great energy and good attention to detail. I have a can-do attitude when I want to, and do good work when I don't have to interact with other people. Of course, I rated myself positively on my self-evaluation, and Nikki didn't note any objection to what I wrote about myself. I really thought my supervisor liked me because she'd regularly send me email messages telling me to have a super night and that we can all have bad days, and she knows tomorrow I'll do well. She'd bring our entire team together and tell us how great we are and that good teamwork's important. She'd tell us all that it was important to speak nicely to each other, even if it was busy. But I know she wasn't really speaking to me. Nikki was doing this to make sure the other people in the department changed their behavior, not me. I'm super friendly. I bake coffee cakes.
You bake coffee cakes for your coworkers?
Well, certain ones.
Cut. Okay. Some interesting issues that came up in that first scene, right? Shirley, you know, has quite the binder of notes. Let me tell you this, employees are fantastic at documenting things when they think somebody's targeting them or something perhaps is going on in the workplace that isn't quite right. So one thing I want to point out is don't ever discount the fact that there may be other people documenting what's been going on. So it's super important as managers, as leaders, that you do the same. The other point I want to make from this and bring out is the concept of team building exercises. I think they're fantastic and important. And departmental meetings and huddles, and those are definitely appropriate ways to remind employees about behaviors and issues that may be troubling, but those should never be the only way it's managed, because like Shirley, you know, if that's the only way the information is conveyed, it's unfair to expect that the employee is going to understand that the message was really intended for that specific person. So you always want to make sure that you are communicating directly with the individual. And then the last thing that I'll note quickly now, but it will come up again as the play goes on, is those satisfactory ratings. It is so easy as a manager when it's time to do the performance evaluations to do that satisfactory or meets expectations, not too low, not too high, kind of Goldilocks, right? It doesn't cause too much trouble, but when it's time to take action against that employee and that performance evaluation doesn't accurately reflect what's really been going on, it's that much harder to actually do something. Okay, we are now going to action to a flashback.
Well, hello there. You must be Trip Anfall, the newest and cutest RN to join 6 North.
Yes, that is me. And you are?
I'm Shirley Uno, a 15-year tri-state employee who's never been disciplined and always receives positive performance evaluations.
Well, hi, Shirley. Very nice to meet you. I'm sure a longtime employee like yourself would be great to work with and could teach me a whole lot here at Tri-State Hospital.
I can teach you quite a lot. Hey, I made some coffee cake. I'm about to take a quick break. Would you like to join me?
Well, I'm not supposed to take my break yet, and I still have so much to learn.
Oh, Trip, don't worry about it. Just hold a patient chart in your hand. And this way, if anybody walks by, we can pretend we're talking about work.
Okay, Shirley, thanks. Great tip. And hey, great coffee cake, too.
I made this last night. It was a hit with my husband. He said it was better than that time on the airplane when we, you know what I mean.
Huh?
It's amazing what happens after a few years. When we started out, that's all he had on his mind. Now he'd rather eat cake. And when he thinks he's up to it, if you know what I mean, he's actually not. Well, come on now, Trip. Eat the cake and be happy you're young.
Well, Shirley, you do make a great cake.
Cut. We'll all never think of coffee cake the same, right? And that is not really the point that we were trying to get across with that. Here's a couple of things to think about beyond what you may already be thinking about. One, we have to recognize that longer tenured employees are very influential over newly hired employees, whether for good, bad, or other. So that's just something to keep in mind as you are integrating new employees into the workforce, what they're hearing, what they're learning, what may be going on. I also wanted to show that sexual harassment or possible sexual harassment or even inappropriate behavior, there is no stereotypical traditional one way that it happens. It can happen in any manner, any kind of harasser, any kind of victim. So recognize that harassment can actually look like anything. Okay, action. Well, Shirley, it is great that you're friendly with your coworkers, but I'm not sure that it's such a good fact that you were talking with a new, younger male coworker about your sex life with your husband?
You mean my lack of sex life? Oh, Sue, don't worry about that. My sex life talk is no big deal. In fact, on March 17th of this year, right after coming back from a late lunch at Evo, I overheard the hospital's manager of important things telling my manager that it was no big deal I was talking about my sex life with Trip because I was such a sweet grandmother-like figure, and Trip wouldn't really be offended.
The hospital's manager of important things really said that?
Oh, yes, she did. And wait, there's more.
Oh, do tell.
Well, right after my manager told the hospital's manager of important things that everyone did often refer to me as sweet old Miss Shirley, and agreed that Trip wouldn't be bothered by a harmless older lady like me, the hospital's manager of important things reminded Nikki how it would be tough to write me up for my coffee cake conversations with Trip, given how Dr. Hands All Over gets away with his massage circle time in the West Wing.
Dr. Hands All Over? Massage circle time? What do you mean?
I can do better than that. I have pictures right here. You see, every day at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. like clockwork, it's circle time in the West Wing. Dr. Hands All Over will stand up and call over any nurses or techs that are nearby, not with patients, of course, because patient safety always comes first. Well, he has them stand in a circle with their arms extended in front of them so that each person can massage the person in front of them, like this. Dr. Hands All Over has made quite the game out of it, too.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he awards a prize to the best massage giver of the day.
A prize? What kind of prize?
After each circle time, the best massage giver gets to sit on his lap and play with his hair to help him relax more. Dr. Hands All Over does other things that are not so obvious, but are equally interesting.
Oh, really? Do tell.
He has an interesting habit of tapping nurses on the shoulders from behind when he walks by, or he might accidentally bump into them if they're standing near a file cabinet or a desk. I've seen him wink at certain nurses all the time, and he also likes to play peekaboo, where he'll cover their eyes from behind and tell the nurses to guess who, but everybody knows who it is, always. So I'm guessing if Dr. Hands All Over gets to do all that, we don't need to be too worried about my coffee cake conversation.
Well, Shirley, you know, you're right about that. Have you ever asked your supervisor, Nikki Never Writes, why you didn't get the chance to even interview for the position on 6 South?
Oh, yes. And of course, I made very detailed notes as soon as the meeting was over. Let me tell you exactly what happened.
Cut. Just gets better and better, doesn't it? Okay, so let me point out a couple of things. Age-based descriptors, grandmother-like, sweet old Miss Shirley. Oh, that's just how sweet old Shirley is. Trip won't have any trouble with that. So that may not seem that terrible, but honestly, describing somebody in a manner that highlights a protected characteristic, even if the intent behind the description was benign and was not said in a malicious way, can absolutely come back to become a problem, especially because people hear and learn more than we might realize. The other thing, of course, that this scene depicted was that we have at Tri-State Dr. Hands All Over, who likes to, in fact, have his hands all over the different nurses and techs and other employees with whom he works. And employees see this, and employees are aware of this, and employees see that it continues and it doesn't stop. So employees are going to get the message, well, it's tolerated, it's okay. So the fact that Shirley has engaged in that inappropriate conversation, and probably more than one with Trip, while ordinarily would be a negative, the fact that we have other people in the organization doing equal, if not worse behavior on a regular and consistent manner, and they seemingly, at least as far as we know right now, are getting away with it, that is not something that bodes well, even though Dr. Hands All Over has nothing to do and did nothing directly, as far as we know, to Shirley, you know. All right, we are now going to resume action to a flashback.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks for meeting with me.
Oh, of course, Shirley. How are you feeling today? I know you've been missing a lot of time for that medical issue of yours. Hey, would you like a new t-shirt? Look at this one, just for you.
Oh, thanks, Nikki. I'd love it, and I'll add it to my collection of other t-shirts, buttons, and fun things you've given to me, letting me know how wonderful you think I am. I'm feeling just fine. I was even able to bake a coffee cake this morning.
Well, Shirley, you know we all do love your coffee cake.
Yes, and Trip really seemed to like it too. Anyway, the reason I'm here is to talk with you about my request to transfer to 6 South. As you know, I submitted my application for the position, and I'd been eagerly awaiting my call from the Employee Care Unit about scheduling my interview, but I never got a call. I figured they must have tried me when I was busy explaining to some of my coworkers how they don't know what they're doing. So I called the Employee Care Unit to speak with my employee care specialist. Imagine my shock when I was told that my transfer evaluation form that you completed didn't support my transfer. I have a copy right here.
Well, let's go through that form and talk about it.
Okay. Well, first it says I'm eligible for transfer, so that's fine. I agree with that. Second, it says I haven't received any written discipline in the last 6 months, which is true. In fact, you've never disciplined me, Nikki. I've worked for you for 5 years, and I've never received any written discipline from you.
Well, Shirley, you know, I like to work with my employees to make them feel good about themselves. Written discipline, it's such a downer. It takes so much time. I just don't like paperwork and forms anyway.
Well, Nikki, I will say you do always make me feel like I'm doing such a great job, so you're right about that. Let's continue. I've been employed in your unit for 6 months. Well, we know that's true. We've had 5 years together. Next, I didn't receive an overall score of unsatisfactory on my most recent evaluation. In fact, you've always given me a satisfactory. I mean, I personally think I'm outstanding, and I've always rated myself as such in my self-evaluations. But satisfactory is certainly not unsatisfactory. I know in the past I've asked you about those satisfactory ratings, and you never did get back to me to explain why only satisfactory. Well, then out of nowhere, I see all this marginal nonsense. Marginal work quality, marginal work quantity, marginal judgment, poor attitude. Why, Nikki? What's this about? You give me t-shirts and send me emails telling me I'm the best. This makes no sense.
You know, we have had all those morning huddles and coffee talks about how everyone in the department needs to work well together, support each other, and not be negative.
Well, surely I know, but those were talks to the entire group, not me. Are you suggesting I was to gather from those group talks that you were directing things at me?
I was kind of hoping you'd figure it out. I don't like to have face-to-face conversations with people because I don't like confrontation. I don't like making people feel sad. I don't always remember things with so much going on. Surely, you know, if I wrote things down when they happened, or maybe when your coworkers complained to me about their concerns, or if I did a better job of documenting when I hear from everybody on 6 South how challenging you can be to deal with, I'd be doing such a better job as a supervisor. I probably wouldn't be on that PIP. I also wouldn't feel so awkward right now.
Well, Nikki, you've never talked directly to me about any of this and never wrote anything down on my performance evaluations or anywhere. Also, you seem to make time to send me uplifting and positive emails. Surely, if you have time for that, you'd be able to find time to write something down on these concerns. So, why think that these are just made-up ratings and there's some other sinister, unlawful, or discriminatory reason that you're not preparing that form correctly?
Oh, Shirley, I promise you, you really do have a poor attitude. Marginal work quality, marginal work quantity. If I had $1 for every time a coworker or a patient complained about you, I'd be able to buy everyone in Tri-State Hospital a t-shirt and balloons.
Is that why you said you wouldn't want to rehire me in the department?
Well, it may be time for you to go to another department. Your reliability this past year was not so great with all the time you had to take off for your FMLA leave. I mean, I know your job's protected for 12 weeks, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean that we all didn't get annoyed by how you would call out at the last minute and miss shifts. We'd find a mistake in your work, we had to correct it. While it was great having a break from your attitude, it doesn't mean that it wasn't hard for the rest of the employees to pick up with one less person. A lot of the other staff had to pick up your slack when you called in with your health issues.
Cut. Well, that was a mouthful. How many issues did you spot? Told you it was a little overdone. But I think what's, you know, really important about this admittedly overdone, but not too far off the mark from reality script is that there can be this imbalance of leaders that want to motivate employees. We all want our employees to do better, and it's natural to want to encourage them with positivity and pointing out the things they're doing well. But if that is all that the employee sees and hears, especially because those more difficult conversations, the constructive criticism and the feedback and the discipline when warranted doesn't happen, the employee is not going to remember that. If it's not in writing, as far as the employee goes, it didn't happen. And even when it's in writing, oftentimes the employee may not remember it correctly. But if as a manager or a leader, you're taking the time to encourage, whether through group dynamics and positive emails and texts like Nikki Never Writes seems to do, you want to make sure that that accurately reflects what is going on. Also interesting here, I just want you to pick up on, Shirley kind of recognizes that she does have some flaws, sort of with her script and revealing that she knows that she might not always work well with others, etc. But again, if she's not called to task on it by her manager, she may not realize, and in fact doesn't realize, that it's a problem. The idea that discipline is a downer, it is, but if we don't discipline the employees when things happen actively in the moment, they're not going to realize necessarily that what they've done is wrong. And this is something that I'm going to focus on more in the afternoon. And then a quick comment about FMLA. That, I know, can often be a huge opportunity when we will often learn, because the person is gone, that they've made a lot of different mistakes and that things were not happening the way we thought. While that can very much be a valid reason for wanting to take action, the timing of it happening while the FMLA leave is in play makes it a lot stickier and trickier. So it's important, as I'm sure you all know, but I'll say it out loud, that the people department is always involved when you're evaluating and giving feedback to an employee who has just returned from any kind of medical leave or extended absence. And action.
So my performance evaluations from Nikki are positive. I don't have any written discipline in my file. She thinks I'm a great employee. I know she may talk about my difficult personality on the phone with employees in 6 South and not always being a team player, yada, yada, yada. But if she didn't write it up and put it in my file, then did it even happen? I don't remember the discussions. Why would it not even be mentioned on my performance evaluation? Obviously, if I were that much of a problem employee or had that much difficulty getting along with others, you would think Nikki Never Writes would take the time to write something. I'm no lawyer, but it does seem weird to me that she has decided to call me unreliable due to my FMLA leave this past year. Don't these managers know yet that if you're absent for an FMLA reason, that can't be held against you? I mean, it's the best gift ever to employees. Thanks, Bill Clinton.
Well, Shirley, you know, you're right about that.
I'm also guessing that the hospital's manager of important things and Nikki probably don't realize I overheard them referring to me as a grandmother and sweet old Miss Shirley.
Well, Shirley, you know, you're right about that too. I think I'm going to call the hospital's employment attorney, Lou Pohl, and be sure to talk with him. Something tells me that after the right kind of conversation, and maybe some professional courtesy of sharing these wonderful notes and documents that you've kept, you'll have all the time and money in the world to bake as much coffee cake as you want. Cut. Okay, so at this point now, we've established that we have an employee who probably has had very legitimate reasons for being disciplined, but who hasn't been disciplined or counseled, who doesn't have performance evaluations that accurately reflect the true frustrations that other coworkers have had dealing with Shirley, that patients have had. We have a manager who is very busy, who means well, but who isn't necessarily engaging in the right kind of performance management process that would actually perhaps give Shirley the benefit of being on notice of things, understanding, correcting problems, or at least understanding enough about what her history has been so that she's not left to guess that these age comments where she was referred to as grandmotherly and sweet old Miss Shirley, and then again looking at her FMLA that only for the first time in her 15 years at Tri-State happened this past year, wondering if those might not in fact be the real reasons and that it has nothing to do with her performance. Again, because her documentation, her file suggests otherwise. So now when we resume action, you're going to find Sue Your Pants Off and Lou Pohl in the midst of a phone conversation and action. Well, Lou, if you don't believe me, I think I have some information that will be convincing. I'll stay on the line so we can talk this through. I'm going to go ahead and have my courier deliver to you a binder, and I'll be sure to wait for you until after you've read through the information. Hold, please. To Lou Pohl, please. Let me know when you get it.
What the? All right, Sue, I have the binder. And obviously, I'm pretty busy. I don't have time to read through this right now. It's going to take me some time to look through it all, meet with my client, interview my managers and employees, and then I'll put you off for a few weeks, claiming everyone's on vacation because it is summer after all. Then I'll finally call you back about the case, okay?
Hey, Lou, I think we need to cut to the chase, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Just cut to the chase.
Okay, I'm going to briefly walk you through what I think are the most important points of information that you need to understand and what a jury is going to hear and see. 1, positive performance evaluations only. 2, no written discipline. 3, no written documentation of any issues with performance or behavior. 4, positive and uplifting emails. 5, lots of praise and t-shirts and balloons and lunches. And let's not forget a few other important details. There apparently is great affection for referring to my client as old and grandmotherly. And there's also apparently a great deal of affection between Dr. Hands All Over and any female with a heartbeat in the West Wing. Oh, one more thing. It seems her first ever FMLA protected leave this past year has suddenly made her unreliable and described as having poor attendance. So tell me, Lou Pohl, how do you work around that?
Well, Sue, I'll tell you exactly how I'll work around all that. How any great lawyer who has just heard a horrible set of facts has a binder full of exhibits that are making my skin crawl, and there have been documentation issues with certain managers at my most favorite hospital client. And also knows there's been some touchy-feely doctors who make others feel like it's okay to be touchy-feely, even though Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and the Maryland Fair Employment Practices Act said it's really, really bad for employers to let that kind of thing happen. Sue, let me tell you exactly how I'm going to respond. I'm going to insist this is preposterous. It's ridiculous. We're going to vigorously defend, and your client, they won't see a penny, because after all, we're Tri-State Hospital. We're one of the biggest hospital employers in the area. And if we settle, Sue, what kind of message is that going to send to our employees? They're going to think we're an easy target, Sue, and we're not an easy target.
Goodbye. Cut. Okay. And sometimes that is how conversations can go. So let me just point out a few things. When I was rattling off the reasons why I felt like this was the case of the century, I said positive performance evaluations only. And we deliberately rated her as satisfactory. But satisfactory in the employment world is positive. And absent there being commentary or rankings or feedback that suggest otherwise, if an employee is rated satisfactorily, that will be considered a positive evaluation. This employee, surely you know, has a ton of documents. That does not always happen, but you need to think about the fact, and I know I said this earlier, that employees are doing a pretty good job of tracking and remembering what they're told, what they see, and what they hear. And I don't want to think that everybody's walking around with a notebook and that they're secretly or even out in the open writing everything down. But you need to be paying just as much attention to what's happening as they may be. Stray remarks are costly. The sweet old Miss Shirley, oh, she's grandmotherly-like, et cetera, et cetera. Those are comments that can really come back and cost money and cause a compromise to a defense of an otherwise very defensible situation. And while you can't control everybody, and the law doesn't expect us as an organization to, the more we do to stop it and make sure that if certain phrases or words are uttered, even if they're not objectively horrific and offensive, even if they seem a little bit more benign, like the examples used in this script, that we don't promote it. And then again, FMLA or medical leave or somebody about to go out for a pregnancy or any other kind of protected status or activity, you've got to be really careful if you are looking to take some action that has been there all along, but for whatever reason you've delayed and put it off. Once that protected leave enters the picture, it makes it a lot more complicated to go ahead and do certain things. Okay, action.
Nikki, I just had a meeting with our fantastic and very smart attorney, Lou Pohl. He tells me that one of your employees, Shirley you know, has retained Sue Your Pants Off because she was denied a transfer from 6 North to 6 South. And Shirley believes it's because of how old she is and that she took FMLA earlier this year.
Oh, Dot, don't you worry about a thing. I have everything you need to know right up here.
Well, that is comforting. I have reviewed her transfer eligibility form and personnel file, and I'm admittedly having a hard time understanding what I'm reading.
What do you mean? I typed everything on the computer.
I don't see any written discipline. I don't see any write-ups of any kind or any written confirmation that you spoke to her about any of your concerns. I reviewed Shirley's past 5 performance evaluations that have happened under your supervision, and there's no mention of her inability to get along with others, difficult personality, or anything that you're now saying. She's consistently rated as satisfactory. She rates herself as outstanding, and you did not respond in any way to temper that. I'm also not sure why you would describe her as unreliable or having poor attendance when her only absences this past year were for FMLA protected reasons. And I've seen Shirley's binder. She has notes on everything, unlike you. Please tell me you have notes written down about discipline issues, complaints from others, anything? Anything?
Here's her file, wait. Here you go. I know I had something written down.
Remember to talk to Shirley about stuff. Oh, well, that sure is clear and helpful. Nikki, do you have any recall about any times, dates, or instances when Shirley was rude to coworkers or patients? Do you have any clear recall about when Shirley was rude? When she was not a team player? Anything?
Well, you know, it's really hard to remember everything when I'm talking to so many patients, employees, doctors, every day. I got a lot going on. I mean, a lot. And it gets so difficult with all the different complaints and so many things. How am I expected to do my job and write everything down?
Well, Nikki, no one ever said being a supervisor was easy or fun or that it would not be demanding. And I understand that writing things down all the time can be tough, but you do make the time to write positive and uplifting emails. Why not write some emails that contain all constructive criticism and feedback and give her an opportunity to correct her behavior rather than just hope it will get better? And what about those performance evaluations? You must prepare them. If you actually took the time to write out clear and honest reasons for making selections that accurately reflect what is going on, it becomes much easier when you do not recommend her for transfer for all the reasons you selected to be able to look back and know why. As it stands now, we have your memory, which isn't so great, and your notes, which are non-existent.
Well, what about all those other employees who have been having a hard time working with her? They can tell you about their issues. Maybe they have some notes.
Well, I certainly can and will speak with those employees, so we'll need coverage. We also need to be ready for anyone to start talking about how the hospital has a lawsuit threatened against it. Your employees are going to be distracted if they know they have to come to the employee care unit to talk to me about Shirley Uno, especially while they're still working with her. And if I remember correctly, the one employee who had the biggest problems with Shirley no longer works for us and is living off the grid in Alaska. So I'm not sure how easily we're going to be able to get in touch with her. Nikki, this does not work well for us. What do you have to say for yourself?
Hey, you want a t-shirt?
Cut. All right, we're coming into the home stretch. Okay, what is known versus what is documented. 5 years of satisfactory performance evaluation, 5 years of no discipline, verbal counselings, maybe in a group setting, maybe even individually, but nothing documented. Emails that are positive, but not emails that contain any constructive criticism or feedback. Memories fade, because of course they do. People leave. So not only does that lack of documentation hurt, when the individual who would hold the information is no longer with the organization, it's not always easy to get them, or even if you can find them, that they're willing to come back and be helpful, because their separation from the organization may not be under favorable circumstances. Then there's, of course, just the impact on the department. HR is going to have to do, or the people department's going to do interviews, which happens, and that's part of it, but that means people are going to not be working. You're going to have to find coverage. And then Shirley Uno is still an active employee. And while it's challenging enough to work in a department where there's a threatened litigation by a former employee, for any of you who have had to experience this, when you're actually working in the department where the person who's threatening or actually suing the hospital still works for you, it adds a level of, we'll call it discomfort, that most people don't want to deal with. Action. Hello, Sue your pants off.
Hey, Sue, it's Lou again.
Oh, hello, Lou. I'm guessing you've had some time to look through my binder, but I am surprised to hear from you so quickly.
Well, Sue, I've had some time to talk with my client, and while we insist Ms. Uno's claims are definitely not valid, we certainly understand that litigation can take a lot of time and energy, and it pulls employees away from their important jobs, so we're willing to have a conversation about settlement.
Lou, hold on one second. I'm just finishing up a call. Hello, Royal Caribbean? Let's book that presidential suite for my trip, my cruise around the world. Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, Lou. I'm back. Talk money to me. The end. So I hope you all enjoyed our very sort of satirical, overdone, hopefully slightly entertaining, scripted discussion about how lack of documentation, lack of performance management can really impact an organization in ways that you might not anticipate. And after lunch, which we are back on schedule to be able to have, my second presentation, which is admittedly a bit shorter, is really going to dial in and focus on some of these performance management and document issues that we have alluded to during the script. So thank you all, and let's bring out our cast out so we can do a thank you.
I'll keep going.
Thank you, thank you.